Welcome back to Tanya in 5. Today, we recap the first letter of section 23 in Book 4 of Tanya, Iggeret HaKodesh. Most sections in Book 4 are just one single letter. It so happens that section 23 has 2 letters. So in this video, we will recap the first letter, and in the next video, God willing, we will recap the second letter. The Alter Rebbe was an extremely busy man. Communities to run, institutions, his own writings, his own teaching, his own learning. And so we find in a number of letters where the Alter Rebbe turns to his community asking that they not demand of him so much of his time. In fact, at some point he even imposed rules about who is allowed to come visit him, how often and when, who can come for a private audience, who can come to hear him when he teaches Torah, and so on. Now this letter could be classified as part of this genre of letters. And he writes as follows. He asks his Hasidim, his followers, to not ask him for advice and guidance in material matters. And for 2 reasons. Number 1, he says, my job as a scholar and one who learns Torah and one who teaches Torah is to advise one on spiritual matters. God endows prophets with prophetic insight, and they can tell you what is and what is not going to happen in the physical realm. But those who study Torah, like myself, says the Alter Rebbe, it's my job to dispense spiritual advice in your service of God. So please don't bother me with your physical problems of material nature. Number 2, the reason you guys are so bothered by materialistic issues is because you are too sunken in materialism. Even though the reason why you want health and livelihood and so on and so forth is because you want to serve God so much, but you're too invested in it. What really you should be doing, says the Alter Rebbe to his followers, you should be accepting the challenges God presents to you as a form of love that God is expressing to you. You see, every challenge you go through in life, every difficulty, is a cleansing process. Cleansing sometimes hurts. So instead of coming to me and saying, how do I get out of this and that problem, what you should be doing is turning to God and saying, I know this is painful, but I thank you for taking the time to cleanse me. It's the deepest love that God himself expresses in that he thinks we are worthy of being cleansed. The Alter Rebbe uses a parable. Imagine a great and mighty and lofty and wealthy king who we observe cleaning excrement, human excrement. Why would a king do that? Why would a king belittle himself to be cleaning human excrement? Well, simply because it is his son. He's changing his son's diaper. And because it's his own child, he will get down, lower himself from his lofty status, and clean the child. Even if it hurts the child when he does so, he will do so because he wants to cleanse his child. And that, says the Alter Rebbe, is the way we should be looking at the stresses and the difficulties that come in our lives. This is God himself coming to our world and cleansing us. And therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, instead of bothering me and asking me for advice on how to avoid the difficulties in your life, turn to God and say, I know this is difficult for me to feel, but I know you love me even in this pain, and I know that this pain is only serving to cleanse me. The takeaway from this, we should make 2 observations. Number 1, this notion that we believe that pain in life is God cleansing us is only when we ourselves are going through pain. If I'm going through pain, then it's incumbent upon me to look into my own past and say, most probably God is cleansing me here in this pain. But when someone else is in pain, don't start playing that game. Don't go to somebody else and say, hey, you shouldn't feel that pain because God's cleansing you. You shouldn't be so sad about it. Don't do that. When somebody else is in pain, do your utmost to help them get out of it. Do your utmost to help mitigate that pain. Which leads to point number 2. Hasidim pointed out that notwithstanding the fact that the Alter Rebbe writes that giving advice on material matters is up to prophets, the Chabad Rebbes did indeed respond to requests for advice in material issues. Well, either this is because they have some element of prophecy, or because they have such deep love of a fellow Jew that if they see the opportunity to help another Jew, and another Jew comes to them in pain and says, Rebbe, please help me, the Rebbe can't turn him down, notwithstanding everything the Alter Rebbe wrote. And yet, the Alter Rebbe appeals to us and says, here's how you should be looking at the things that are difficult in life, how you should be looking at your challenges, your own challenges, not in somebody else's life, but in your own life, when things are not going as pretty as you'd like them to be. Try to look through it and see God's love even there. Looking forward to seeing you when we get to the second letter of section 23 of book 4.